they'll perform a critical engine burn. The trench has calculated the exact instant Apollo 8 should reappear.
If the engine burn was successful, then they'd come around at this time and we'd see them. And if they didn't do the maneuver, then they would be early.
We've heard nothing yet, but we're standing by.
To the second, we saw that clock at 0. We heard the call, and we knew the crew had performed the perfect maneuver. We were now in orbit around the moon.
It's Apollo 8 now in lunar orbit. There's a chair in this room.
For the first time, humans have arrived only 60 miles from another planet.
I think the best way to describe this area is a vastness of black and white. Absolutely no color.
Then the crew, and everyone watching on Earth, sees something else.
That was indescribable. If you didn't experience that, you've missed something. You see it now, and you can make up that picture on any computer. But that was real, and it meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot, I think, to every human being on Earth that saw it.
And then they did the unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
They started reading from the book of Genesis. And this was on Christmas Eve.
And the earth was without form and void. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God called the firmament heaven.
This was a surprise. Everything else had been pre-planned. And I was crying. It was so beautiful. And right now, this time, I really find it hard to suppress, the emotion of that instant. It's real for everybody who was there, who lived it.
Waters called he seas. God saw that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
To hear that coming from Americans circling the moon on Christmas Eve, very emotional moment, very proud moment.
Apollo 8 is a turning point in history, giving humankind its first look at our home as it really is. In early 1969, two more Apollo flights, 9 and 10, test the lunar lander. By June, Apollo 11, the first moon landing attempt, is only 4 weeks away. Behind the scenes at Mission Control, Gene Kranz's team is training, simulating the landing.
The simulations were so real that no controller could discern the difference between the training and the real mission.
Astronauts are in a mock spacecraft, controllers at their consoles. When the sim begins, the mission is played out as if for real, following a script created by the simulation team. A script designed to uncover weakness.
They would start out with a normal mission so we could see that. After that, the rules were off. They would throw in any kind of failure we might be able to have.
The sim guys were devious people. They would give you a red herring to send you off sideways here and get you distracted. And then come the bomb buster, hit you kaboom.
Only a month before the real landing, Kranz's sims are not going well.
It seemed we couldn't do anything right. We'd crash into the surface of the moon. We'd abort unnecessarily. Our bosses would call us up on the phone and they'd say, "Hey, what's going on down there?"
By July 5th, they're out of time. there's one final sim before launch.
Final simulation is essentially graduation day. It's one where you want everything to go exactly right, and you want to leave the crew and the control team feeling good about this mission.
The sim begins. In charge of the landing computer on the lunar module, the LEM, is Guidance Officer Steve Bales. Halfway through the sim, the computer sounds an alarm.
This alarm should never come up. So I called an abort.
Capcom word, no go. Roger, you are no go, no go.
I thought we had done the right thing. My controllers thought they had done the right thing. But the simulation supervisor came in and said, no, you didn't do the right thing. You had that computer program alarm, but the computer was still functioning correctly.
According to the sim supervisor, Krantz's team aborted unnecessarily.
As a team, we had failed our final training day, and this was bad news.
In a little more than a week, Apollo 11 will depart for the moon, and Gene Krantz's team is not ready. July 1969, 10 days before the launch of Apollo 11. The final simulation has uncovered a problem with the landing computer. Gene Kranz wants Steve Bales to clear it up.
Gene said, look, I want you to go work on computer alarm rules, and I want to have an answer before the week's over. What are we going to do if this alarm comes up?
The computer designers assure Bales the alarm can't happen in actual flight, but if it somehow does, it will be his decision whether or not to continue the landing.
Today, mankind will attempt
mission
to land.
control in Houston reports everything is
America's
go
moonshot,
for today's
our first chance to set foot on another world.
2 weeks later, the first moon landing is about to begin. Gene Krantz's entire life has led him to this moment.
Of all of the flight directors, I'm probably the most emotional, and I felt compelled to talk.
I said, we're getting ready to make history.
We're getting ready to make history. You know what we're about to do.
From the day that we were born, we were destined to be in this room this day.
I have absolute
I have absolute confidence in everyone in this room, but I want you to know something.
No matter what happens to us this day, I will stand behind every decision that you make.
however it goes.
However it goes. When we walk out of this room, we walk out of this room as a team. I can't even say that today without getting choked up about it. That was the best thing he could have said to me.
And I said, lock the control room door. And from that moment forward, no one would enter or leave this room until we had either landed, we had aborted, or we had crashed.
Krantz checks with every controller before starting the landing.
Okay, all flight controllers, go, no, go for powered descent. Retro, go. Fido, go. Guide, go. Control, go. Telcom, go. GNC, go. Econ, go. Surgeon, go. Capcom word, go for powered descent.
250,000 miles away, astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin start down in the LEM.
Eagle, that looks good. Eagle, Houston, everything's looking good here, over.
Then, only a minute into the descent, Steve Bales, call sign Guidance, sees they're going down too fast.
20 foot per second down,
If the air increases, they could crash.
Steve Bales comes to me and he says, Flight, we're halfway to our abort limit.
So I was terrified. I thought I was going to have to stop the landing.
How you looking, guys? They're out 20 foot per second. No change is what you're saying. No change. Roger.
No change. The speed stays within abort limits.
And I thought my big problem for the day was over.
But in fact, Bales' big problem is about to begin.
1201. 1201. Roger, 1201 alarm.
1201, the computer alarm that is never supposed to happen in actual flight. The same one from the final sim.
I'd forgotten what 1201 was. My backroom, who knows everything, has reminded me, that's the one where you've got to make a choice.
Bales is